G'day listeners and welcome to another APS News Bulletin, keeping you up to date and well informed on everything happening out there in the Australian property market in real time. Now guys, today's episode is going to be all about the budget that was released last week, the 2024-2025 budget. We're going to go through the recap, the highlights, and give you a bit of a summary from a property investing perspective, what you can kind of expect off the back of the budget. Now guys, to kick off with kind of the high level highlights here before we drill a little bit deeper as well, this comes through from Homefront summary of the Australian government's minutes directly from their website. Point number one, guys, is the 2024-2025 budget aims to provide cost of living relief and strengthen the economy, focusing on easing pressures, investing in a future made in Australia, and responsible economic management. Despite global uncertainty and challenges, Australia is better positioned to manage economic shifts and benefit from change with back-to-back surpluses and lower debt to GDP ratios than expected. The budget prioritises easing cost of living pressures, building more homes, investing in a future made in Australia, strengthening Medicare and the care economy, and advancing equality and opportunity. Global growth is expected to remain subdued, so obviously abroad, with a focus on managing inflation and risks to growth as inflation moderates and labour markets soften. The budget delivers further cost of living relief through tax cuts, energy bill relief, increased Commonwealth rent assistance, support for students, cheaper medicines, and investments in housing, renewable energy, skills, healthcare, and equality initiatives. Now, guys, that's obviously direct from the Australian government's website. When we kind of unpack and dig a little bit deeper, you kind of, can cut through some of this sort of high level stuff that makes it seem more rosy. There is some good stuff in there, but obviously isn't going to be enough to bring, especially their housing targets that they're looking to meet, into, are we actually going to hit that stuff? So if we dive a little bit deeper and look into the numbers, this report comes from REB's federal budget summary that came out last week. Homes for Australia, which obviously is the initiative by the Labor government right now, is the first point they want to go through, guys. As unveiled by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese last Friday, this year's budget includes $11.3 billion to address the acute housing shortages currently facing Australians. This package, called the Homes for Australia Plan, includes $9.3 billion that has already been pledged over 5 years under the National Agreement on Social Housing and Homelessness, which will be dedicated towards repairing social housing and providing crisis support for those that are hardest hit in terms of actually getting housing. Further $6.2 billion in new investments was added to the plan in the latest budget, bringing the total amount funding invested in housing since 2022 to $32 billion. The Homes for Australia plan includes $1 billion for crisis transitional accommodation for women and children escaping domestic violence and for youth, pledged as part of the previously announced National Housing Infrastructure Facility. A further $1 billion has been committed to states and territories to build roads, sewers, water, and community infrastructure to support new residential development. So obviously putting more money out there in the economy to try and bring more housing estates to the market. The budget will also deliver $1.9 billion in concessional loans to help community housing providers construct 40,000 social housing and affordable homes. All right, so trying to bring that number back up. Currently, it's only literally a couple of percent of the housing supplied in Australia is social housing. They'd been clearing it for a long time until we came up into the housing crisis. Now, obviously, they're trying to play a bit of catch up by building more of these, actually as we've been moving forward as well. Meanwhile, the $2 billion social housing accelerant payment will fund 4,000 new or refurbished social houses. Again, funding, feeding back into what I just discussed as well. Now, moving on, guys, our rent assistance. The Commonwealth rent assistance has been increased by 10%, representing a total investment of $1.9 billion for the federal government. Rising rents are another big part of the inflationary challenge, and we're supporting renters who need our help. Since 2022, Commonwealth rent assistance has risen by 40% to mirror the steep upward trajectory of prices in the private rental market. Chalmers noted that the rental assistance boost would provide much needed help for young people and renters of all ages doing it tough amid a swathe of supply and affordability challenges. Guys, this is one of those points that with inflation and trying to get inflation under control, they're literally talking about throwing in an extra 10%, of support towards people in need for rental assistance. While this is actually really crucial and kind of really needed for those people who are less fortunate and maybe can't afford it, without the assistance, the issue is they're effectively adding 10% to a certain segment of the market that now can pay effectively that little bit more to be able to secure that housing and support on the housing on that front. Now, the biggest issue with that is rent is a massive driver of inflation. So the more that we kind of increase things on that front, as hard as it is, it's going to keep, pressure on the inflationary numbers as well. Something they've been talking about for a long time, which probably would make a bit of sense, is pulling actual rental numbers out of the inflationary data, because it creates obviously a huge push when we're going through times like we are now of rising rents, keeping that at a very, very high number. And the longer it stays, that the inflation numbers stay high, the longer that the interest rates stay high. And while the interest rates stay high, obviously the only thing investors can do if they've either got the option to either increase their rents or sell out if they can't afford to hold a property, they're going to take that first option if possible. And if it's there, they might be able to still hold it. And obviously we want them to still hold it, because the more people that have to sell, that's just going to eat in, as from an investment perspective, that's only going to eat into more and more rental stock as well. So it's a very tricky sort of thing to be in at the moment. But again, why keeping rents in there can be tough from an inflationary perspective as well in terms of measuring that. Moving on, guys, increasing the pipeline of construction workers. Next on the agenda, the government has earmarked $90.6 million within this year's budget to boost the construction workforce. This contribution aims to remove the cost barriers to education and training for construction careers, with $88.8 million put towards 20,000 additional fee-free TAFE training places to increase the pipeline of workers in construction and housing. So that's getting more and more people in TAFE, get them trained up in the construction sector. So you're obviously mitigating the expenses that these guys would have to pay to become qualified or to get into their trades and whatnot as well, to get more and more people in there, lower barrier to entry. It also includes $62.5 million to flow to the states and territories that will provide an additional 15,000 fee-free TAFE and VET places over the 2 years from January 2025. So obviously trying to incentivize these different states to get more and more people in there, so they get more and more trades or apprentices coming through, which obviously will put more and more people in the workplace to deliver on these construction targets that they're chasing. Another $26.5 million was pledged to create approximately 5,000 places in pre-apprenticeship programs over the same period. Within the latest financial statement, the government additionally committed to raising payments for apprentices in priority occupations from $3,000 to $5,000 and hiring incentives for priority occupation employees from $4,000 to $5,000 from the 12 months starting from the 1st of July 2024. According to the government, this will provide certainty to apprentices while a strategic review of apprenticeship incentive is underway. Within the budget papers, the government stated that eligible group training organisations would be reimbursed for reducing fees to small to medium enterprises seeking apprentices in priority sectors such as construction, clean energy and manufacturing. In delivering their biggest investment in social and affordable housing in a decade, the government announced that this investment would help overcome the liquidity challenges construction firms are facing as a result of the current cyclical downturn in residential building approvals. So effectively trying to help float them a little bit, employ more people. And guys, what you can see here is the government obviously trying to put as much money as they can into incentivizing people, both employers to employ people and then individuals to go out there and get your trade qualifications and all the rest of it to get into the industry, so we can provide more labor, so we can complete more homes and keep building, kind of get back on track so they can hit the targets that they're chasing with obviously the 1.2 million homes in the next 5 years. Moving on, guys, I think the Treasurer and the Prime Minister must have been listening to Liam and I a couple of weeks ago, because talking about this is literally the kind of the point that we were making a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about obviously the issues with the immigration policies and they've had and not actually targeting skilled migrants in the construction sector, which is something that we really needed to do. This article really kind of nails on the head what they're trying to do. These next two articles, actually, I'll kind of put these together too. So look, increasing the pipeline of construction workers, simplifying process for migrant workers. Again, guys, this is what Liam and I were chatting about. A further $1.8 million is devoted to simplifying skill assessments for around 1,900 potential migrants from countries with comparable qualifications who want to work in Australia's construction and housing sector, and to prioritise the processing of around 2,600 skills assessments through Trade Recognition Australia in high need occupations. So effectively, guys, who are they that we need to get into the country to fill these vital roles so we can start to build more homes and start to get more traction and keep the labor costs down by having these guys come in, more people in the same jobs. Obviously, it will put a little bit of pressure, downward pressure on increasing labor pricing, which is only a good thing, guys. Something I've been talking about from the very start. Allowing a huge amount of people to come in, but but a tiny percentage of that population actually helping to solve the housing crisis was a bit silly. But obviously now they're trying to change the paradigm on that and get the result that they want from the increased population. Final thing to wrap up here is the power bill relief. The budget also released a new power bill relief, both for businesses and residential occupiers, will be on its way, aiming to directly ease cost of living pressures for households and eligible small businesses. Additional energy bill relief will be coming at a cost to the government of $3.5 billion. From the 1st of July 2024, the government said it will deliver rebates of $300 to every household and $325 to around 1 million small businesses across the country. According to Chalmers' budget papers, extending energy bill relief to all households would directly reduce headline inflation by around 0.5% in 24-25 and is not expected to add broader inflationary pressures. So as that last paragraph kind of goes in there as well, guys, they're literally trying to directly affect the inflationary numbers by giving that as well to reduce that cost in electricity, for a very small window of time. Obviously, the idea of it is to drop inflation a little bit. So they're literally trying to, put their handle on it and model it, hold it down themselves, which will be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. But effectively, it's not going to create a ridiculous change at all anyway. Look, guys, that's pretty much it from a property perspective. There's obviously other things that were sort of discussed within it as well, but from a property perspective, obviously it's a pretty, as I said in there, acute issue in Australia at the moment that they're trying to rectify. So there's many billions of dollars going out there into the market, into the economy that they're trying to, obviously get these target numbers back on board. They are talking about, obviously this is a little bit separate from this, but winding back those population growth numbers as well. We will see how that plays out. But ultimately, they are needing to put more people on the ground with labour into jobs, and changing a few things from an immigration perspective could ease some pressure from that. But I think that I still think there's going to be a lot more that needs to be done to actually create a significant change from this perspective. In proper summary, guys, not too many things are being realistically brought in to bring inflation properly under control. This is an issue. We really do need to get that under control so they can bring the interest rates back down at some point as well. The longer that this stays higher, obviously the longer it's going to be until the RBA do start to look to trim it. So a lot of people are going to be in some financial pain and some financial stress so long as the inflation and the interest rates stay high as a result as well. So probably not really enough brought in here to substantially bring back inflation in any sort of meaningful way, guys, but they're pledging money into the affordable housing, rent assist, and that crisis assist housing. But obviously, Labor are also notorious at mismanaging money, so we'll see how that goes over this next period as well. Currently nothing on the agenda, which is good news, guys. Currently nothing on the agenda for capital gains tax or negative gearing, which obviously is good news for us as investors. I also don't think they're going to do that anytime soon. When it comes to capital gains tax and negative gearing for investors, I don't think they're going to change that anytime soon, purely for the fact that they need that private housing out there in the market right now. They need those private rentals. There is not enough rentals to go around. So doing anything like potentially talking about or pulling out for CGT, capital gains, or negative gearing is only going to negatively impact how much supply there is for rental properties out there. And right now, that is not something that they want to touch. Still remaining pretty bleak in the outlook for hitting those housing targets as well, guys, of 1.2 million homes over the next 5 years. We're already well under those target numbers in terms of what we're chasing at the end of the first year from a pretty significant perspective as well. But they are trying to bring some things in to see if they can ease us. So for the first 1, 2, 3 years of that 5-year target plan, I don't think they're going to be anywhere near on target to hit that. Build price is too high, too many people not willing to build, too many builders going under, even not really bringing the numbers of build price increase numbers under control too much. I think with a few of these changes that they're talking about bringing in, if they are done properly, some of these, especially if we can significantly slow down the rising cost of build prices at the moment, if they can, which they are slowing, but if they can slow them down a lot, maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, it picks back up again, of people being willing to go out there. Maybe they need to bring some more incentives out there, especially to potentially incentivize investors to build rather than to buy existing. That may bring a bit more to the market, and obviously cutting red tape. But I think these are the real things that are needed to be changed to actually come anywhere near hitting that housing target. Because as of right now, we're going to fall woefully short of this $1.2 million homes target. How far short is obviously going to be a wait and see game. But guys, that's a wrap for another APS Weekly News Bulletin on the budget and on everything to do with property investing in the budget as well. I hope you took a little bit of value out of that. If there's anyone that you think might also take some great value or might want to hear about the budget wrap up, how it relates to property, please send this thing on. And until next week, guys, that's another APS News Bulletin on the Scouting Australia podcast.